even though the usual horror game season of Halloween has already passed, there's quite a lot of you who have been asking how to integrate heart rate monitoring with VNyan. So today I'm going to show you guys how to use the Pulsoid integration in VNyan to get your heart rate to affect your avatar. Hi, it's your friendly neighborhood VTuber Suvi here again with a new tutorial. So today we're going to look into VNyan's Pulsoid integration to get your heart rate affect your avatar. We're going to create two different node graphs today. First one will be a simple example showing how to turn an effect on and off based on your heart rate hitting specific value. And the other example is to create a smooth transition of a blend shape value based on the heart rate. It's gonna be a bit long video, but let's get started with it anyway. Before we move into actually doing the actual node graph, you will want to make sure that your avatar has some kind of blend shape or some kind of effect you can turn on with the heart rate. So for this example, we have a very simple Vroid model. And for this we have created a completely simple blend shape that just turns our avatar's face red. So I have created a blend shape called red face, which simply just swaps the face to be red. And the way this is done is you basically just add a material, link it to the face materials color, and then set some other color there. So now when the value goes anywhere between 0 and 1, the face will turn more red. Okay, and this is the model we're using today. Anyway, the next step is to open up VNyan, and we will be linking it to this red face blend shape then. Okay, now that you have your VNyan open and the avatar loaded up, we can start testing this system out a little bit. So first of all, you will of course want to make sure that your blend shape is working, and the easiest way to do this is to just create a new graph, add some kind of temporary callback node, and then link a blend shape node to it. Now we will type in the blend shape's name, which in our case was the red face. And we'll set the blend shape value to 100. And we'll set the smooth multiplier to 0 for now, and then gonna use it as a toggle. Then connect them and just test it out. And as you can see, it's working. So the next step for us is to build the actual node graph, what we want to use today. So before you get started with the actual node graph, it's usually a good idea to connect Pulsoid first. Pulsoid is what we will be using for the heart rate monitoring, so make sure you have an account created for Pulsoid, as well as their software installed on your mobile device. I also recommend you otherwise make sure that the Pulsoid is indeed tracking your heart rate correctly. So to connect Pulsoid with VNyan, we simply click the Pulsoid login button. This will open up a website where you will simply need to authorize your account. And then once you've clicked that, it works basically the same way as the Twitch login. So you will then close the window after it has connected, and the button will turn into disconnect Pulsoid instead, like this. Now, when your heart rate monitoring is on, you will be able to read your heart rate using the filter heart rate node. When you open this up, you should see your current heart rate being tracked here. If your heart rate monitor is not on at the moment, it will most likely show the previous value it had when it got disconnected from Pulsoid. Now, in addition to this filter node, there is also a hidden parameter where the value is saved, which is called heart rate. You will be able to utilize either of these, either the parameter value or the heart rate filter. Now, because it is a filter node, that means we will have to create a loop that will be executing this. So to do that, let's start by creating a timer loop. So first of all, you will want this timer to start when your application is started. So let's find the callback for the upstart. Like so. Next thing, we want to make this start a new timer. So let's find the start timer action node like so. And we will now connect this. Now to the timer name, we could just call it heart rate loop. Like so. And then the frequency, how often you want to check the heart rate. It is not updated all that often from Pulsoid, so even like half a second should be more than enough frequency for this. Okay, so now we start the timer. Now we also need to react to the timer. So we're going to add the timer callback, like so. And we add the same text, the heart rate loop there. And after this, so what basically happens is application starts the timer. And when the timer launches, it needs to start the timer again, like so. And now we need to build the actual logic. So let's add the filter heart rate, like so. And now what this basically would do is that every 500 milliseconds we check if heart rate is above a certain value. And then we start to do something. Now we could with the heart rate filter, if we had some effects we just wanted to turn on or off, we could do it with this. Like let's say if we wanted our blend shape value, the red face, to instantly turn on when heart rate is above specific value, we could use this node. So to test that out, we need to add the blend shape toggle here. But since the blend shape is indeed a toggle, we will also need to create some kind of parameter gate to make sure that we don't toggle it on and off instantly. So to do this, let's add, first of all, what heart rate will turn this on. Since our currently logged heart rate is at 95, let's set this value to 80, like so. And now we could add a filter parameter. And let's just call it red face on. And let's make sure to check that the value is not on, so value is 0. Then we connect this like so. And now if our heart rate is above 80 and the red face on parameter is set to 0, then we will turn on the blend shape value. So let's find the blend shape toggle like so. And we're gonna type the blend shape name, we're gonna turn on, so red face. We will set the value to 100. And we can make the transition kind of smooth. So let's set it to 0.3. And then we'll draw the line from the equals part, like so. And we will use this as a toggle. Now, what we will also have to do is actually set this red face parameter to 1. So let's add the set param node. And to this, let's add the same text, the red face on, and we'll set it to 1, and we'll connect it like this. So now, if we were to trigger this specific chart on or restart VNyan, our character's head would turn to red. So let's try it. And as you can see, the face turned to red, and it's not turning off either. Now, in addition to this, we will of course need to create the other part of the chart, so the part that turns the effect off. To do this, let's duplicate the parameter filter, like so. And this time we're gonna set the value to 1, and we're gonna connect it to the other part. So if our heart rate falls below the specific value, then we will check whether the red face is already on, and if it is on, then we will toggle the same blend shape again and set the parameter value to something else. So again, let's duplicate the set parameter node. This time we set the value to 0, and we connect this node like so. And then we also connect it to the same blend shape node because it works as a toggle. So now if our heart rate was to fall below the specific value, we would set this off. So we could just set this heart rate filter to something higher than this value. So let's set it to 100. And as you can see, the face returns back to normal. Now, the specific chart is what you can use if you have an effect that you just need to turn on or off at specific heart rate value. Of course, since we created a smooth blend shape that keeps turning the face red starting from 0 and going to the max value, this means that we could actually also create the kind of effect that would keep changing the face redder the higher our heart rate is. Now, this kind of a node chart is a bit more complicated, but that's what we shall still go through today. So to get started with that, let's also create a new graph, and we will delete this previous one so we don't accidentally trigger any of these existing effects here. Okay, so now the other way to do this would be to create a smooth transition between completely normal face and the red face. And for this a bit more complicated or complex method of doing it, we will be using the built-in parameter heart rate to pull it off. And simply let's get started again by creating the loop. So again, we're going to create a timer loop that starts on application start. So same thing as before. Let's call the loop heart loop. And now to the milliseconds to trigger, let's set it a bit shorter. So let's set it to 300 milliseconds. Like so. And the next step is that we will need to use some of the parameter maths. Okay, so first of all, we should specify what is our maximum heart rate, or the heart rate when the blend shape will be at the maximum value. So to do this, let's create a new parameter, and let's call it max heart rate. And I'm going to set this to 140, set it to whatever you feel like is a good maximum value for you personally. And we're going to connect it to the application start. So when this loop starts, we should set the max value to this. We can now open up the monitor window by clicking the monitor button and scroll all the way down. And here you will see the parameter max heart rate that we just set to being value 140. Okay, the next step for us is to do some maths. So here when we tick the timer, let's add a param operation. This is a node that allows you to do some maths between different numbers. But now since we are doing some maths, we should also be 100% sure that we execute these operations in correct order. And for that we need to use the node called ordered execution. This will basically run the sockets in order from top to bottom. So if we connect it like this, then this param operation will be run first. And what we want to do now is we want to convert our current heart rate value into a value between 0 and 100 that is required by the blend shape node. So let's create a new parameter called new heart rate. Like so. So now the result of this operation will be assigned to a parameter called new heart rate. Then to the value 1, we're going to actually feed the hidden built-in parameter that contains your heart rate. So let's add square brackets and let's type heart rate, like so. So when you are using parameters inside a number field, you will need to add them into square brackets. And now to do some simple maths, we're going to divide the current heart rate by the maximum heart rate. So let's add the max heart rate into square brackets to the value 2. Like so. So now our value should be something like 0.6. So if we were now to signal this node and look into the monitor, then with the current heart rate of 95, that divided by 140, we get 0.67. The next step we should do is multiply it by 100, and then we're going to also cap it after that. So let's add another parameter operation. So let's simply duplicate this node. And again, we are saving the value to the new heart rate, but to the value 1, we will add in square brackets the new heart rate, like so. And then we will multiply it by 100. And this we will connect to the second socket of the ordered execution. So now after we have read the heart value and we have divided it by the max heart value, we'll multiply it by 100. And next, we will need to make sure that we cap the value to 100. So let's use the filter parameter. And to this one, we will also type the new heart rate. And to the value, let's set 100. So now if our value will be above 100, we will want to set it to 100. So let's use the set parameter and assign it to new heart rate. And we'll set the value to 100. And we connect it to the if it is above the value. Okay, so now after all these math operations, our heart rate, the new heart rate parameter, should be anything between 0 and 100. And now, of course, we want to assign this value to the blend shape that we created earlier. So let's find the blend shape toggle, and to this we will type the red face, so the same as before. And to the blend shape value, we add in square brackets the new heart rate. And the smooth multiplier, let's set it to 0, and we're not gonna use this as a toggle, so make sure this is not set. And then we'll connect it like so. And as you can see, our face already turned red. Now, if you want to test whether this really works, you could lower the max heart rate to something else. So let's create a temporary node here. And let's set the maximum heart rate to 100. And now, when we signal this, our head should turn more red. And as you can see, it is working. Now, of course, the next step for you is to see if this actually works with your heart rate monitoring. So if you have not yet connected Pulsoid, this is the time where you should do it and turn on your heart rate monitor and see if it works or not. Now, if you have tested this out, you will probably notice that we are actually toggling the heart rate starting from value 0 towards 140 or whatever max value you have set. Now this of course results the fact that your face will probably be red even when you are having kind of like a normal resting pulse. So how do we affect this so that we have kind of like a minimum heart rate after which we only apply this effect? To do that, we would need to modify this node graph a little bit. So to the application start, let's duplicate the max heart rate node and let's set it to min heart rate. And this will be the minimum heart rate after which our face will start to turn into red. So we can set it to something like 60 and connect it to the application start. And now let's send the signal so it will be initialized to this value. Okay, so now to get this kind of thing working, we will have to do a little bit more maths operations to get this working correctly. So we need to go back to the ordered execution node and we need to actually do a little bit more operations for this. So let's disconnect a couple of these nodes and move them to the sockets that come after them. To disconnect a socket, you can simply right-click on the socket. Like so. Okay, and now since we may need multiple operations, we can duplicate the ordered execution node like so and connect it to the first one. Now, what we want to do now is we want to convert our existing heart rate to a bit different value. And to do this, we need to create some more operations. So let's use the param operation. And let's start assigning values here again, like before. So we will need to read our heart rate first of all. So let's do it the same way we did earlier. So new heart rate And we're going to read the heart rate to this value, like so. But what we want to do now is we want to decrease the minimum heart rate from this. So let's select the minus, and then let's add the min heart rate in square brackets, like so. So now our new heart rate's value should be our current heart rate minus the minimum value. Now, of course, we do not want to go into a negative value. So again, we will add a filter parameter here, and we will check the new heart rate. And we will check against value 0, like so. And if we, for some reason, go below value 0, then we will set it to 0. So let's add a set parameter node, set the new heart rate, and set the value to 0 if our value is below 0, like so. So with this, we would now have the value go between the 60. But to get this working correctly, our heart rate is now basically missing some values or whatever the minimum heart rate value is. So we will also need to decrease the minimum heart rate from the maximum heart rate to get the math operations work correctly. So how do we do this? Again, let's add a param operation. And let's create here a temporary new parameter, so new max heart rate. And to the value 1, we'll add max heart rate in square brackets. And we're going to minus the minimum heart rate, again in square brackets, like so. Okay, so now we have a parameter called new max heart rate that we should be using in the further calculations. So let's move down here and see how we need to modify these existing nodes. So first of all, we need to again set the new heart rate to be something correct. But as you can see, we already did read here to the new heart rate, the heart rate value. And then we minus the minimum heart rate. So instead of reading the heart rate parameter here, we should actually read the new heart rate value, like so. And then we should divide it by the new maximum heart rate instead of the max heart rate, like so. So now our calculations should be between this 60 and 140. Then we repeat the same steps as before, so we multiply it by 100, and then we check that we don't go beyond 100, like so. And now we could signal this node. And as you can see, our face looks much more lighter than it looked before. And if we look into the monitoring, we can see the new max heart rate is at 80, so that's the 140 minus the minimum value. And then the minimum heart rate is 60. Now, if we wanted to test this out right now, we could set the values to be a bit different. So we could set the minimum heart rate to 95, and we could signal this again. And as you can see, our face looks normal. This is because currently our heart rate is set to 95. But in most cases, you will want this to be your resting pulse. So set it to whatever your resting pulse is, and it should work. I hope you liked today's tutorial. Now, it may have been a bit long, but I hope you got your effects working anyway. If you run into any questions, we do have already a relatively big Discord channel for VNyan, with a lot of people posting not only assets but also tutorials, and you can ask any questions there about the application or how to solve some specific Node Graph issues. So make sure to join the Discord if you run into anything you need to ask. Anyway, if you want to stay up to date with my new tutorials, related to VNyan, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell button to get a notification when I post something. Anyway, see you next time, cuties. Bye bye.